the bigger unlock for organizations is that semantic and context piece.
What does it look like to be AI ready in terms of your data foundation?
When we look at enterprises, actually 80 to 90% of the data that they have is unstructured. So now we suddenly have this amazingly powerful tool, GenAI models like Gemini, that can actually unlock that 80 to 90% of what's been dark data. Agents are actually different. Agents are built on these GenAI models that are actually super powerful, constantly reasoning and learning over time. We can't test agents like we've done software in the past. Agents need continuous evaluation.
So when it comes down to that individual, what skills or qualities do you think is really important to have? Like, what kind of people are going to succeed? Yasmeen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Liam. It's a pleasure to join you.
I want to address the elephant in the room. We are both obviously Scottish, and we're going to try rein it in for the conversation. We're going to try to be understandable. We're going to do our best. But before we jump into everything that you're doing with Google, everything to do with governance and security and data and agents, I want to ask a bit of a funky question. So I'm curious, with you being in Silicon Valley, I think you said around 7 or 8 years now, is there anything about being Scottish, about the approach of being Scottish, about the mindset or the upbringing of being Scottish that informs your success in a different way from your peers?
That's a great question. When I think about being Scottish, firstly, growing up in Scotland, such an amazing experience. You are on an island, and there's so much community around. I grew up in this small city called Dundee. So much community. You grow up in this vibrant culture, and I studied computer science and life sciences in Scotland, and it actually pushed me to think about um, different industries and domains and all of the things. But the fact that Scotland, the UK is an island, it like creates a sense of community, and you're learning from others and you're building these connections. So when I moved to the US, and frankly, the US is massive. It's like you could almost fit all of Europe inside the US. It felt like this massive like explosion of just huge space and time, and you're looking at like just the scale at which you're able to do things in the US felt massive. But I felt like as I held on more to the roots from the skills that I learned in Scotland, having studied here, lived here, built the communities that I was part of, I could really take those skills and apply them in this like really big world that otherwise felt super scary. So now when I think about my day to day at Google, those communities and building relationship is so important. It's actually you begin to learn it's a small world once you start to build those connections and what you can do with whether it's other communities and teams at Google or outside of Google. That's what I really hold on to.
I love that ability to make connections and friendships and really build that. Like I feel that being Scottish as well. I think that's something that we're very good at, and it's just a cultural thing as well. It's something that comes easily to us. I'm fascinated by your journey from starting with projects like Pep Tracker to running your own consultancy to studying at Harvard to your current role as managing director of product management for data and AI cloud at Google Cloud. That was a big one, but I got it out there. I'm curious, what's the thread that runs through all of those things for you? What is it about you that makes you do these things?
Curiosity. I feel like throughout my journey, I've taken lots of pivots and turns, but throughout it all, getting myself outside of my comfort zone has all been about actually curiosity about learning different domains and different spaces. And when I did the Harvard thing, I did a course in like finance, which was completely outside of the work that I'd been doing. But I could see how the world of finance was so connected as I progressed my journey in my career and how, applying that. And I got into strategy. But each of those journeys, it was all about curiosity and pivoting and getting outside my comfort zone. And I think it started right from my university days. I studied computer science, but then went and did a PhD in life sciences. And I hadn't taken biology, hadn't done the the traditional science part of it, but I felt like I'd learned these skills with computer science that, hey, can I apply them in the proteomics and genomics space and help biologists? And so throughout my career, I recognize those pivots where I've taken skills that I'd built to date, but then said, hey, I want to go try use them in a different domain, and learning and continuously learning and being able to explore those domains has been the most fun thing for me.
With this curiosity, I see that so much of your background and what you do for work and career is all centered around data. What is it about data that just interests you so much? Why are you so deep in that as a subject area?
When I think about data, data's been around forever, from like the basic spreadsheet to the biggest, most complex data platform systems I've seen with hundreds of petabytes of data. What super interests me about data is at the core of it, it's super simple. It's numbers, it's characters, it's words, but the stories that you can pull out of data, that's where I love to just get into data and understand what does it really mean. So I remember my early days as I was also consulted with retailers, financial services, telcos, manufacturing companies. What was the bit that I was super passionate about was like data fundamentally can look super simple, but it actually hides all of these unique stories and insights and intelligence. And that's what got me originally into the whole data science space, was that opportunity to explore and tell stories with data.
I love that. I want to use that background and frame our conversation today. So, when we're talking about the enterprise AI conversation, I want to make sure every listener has the same foundation. So, when you hear the words data in the context of AI, what does that actually mean? And why does the quality of that data determine whether AI succeeds for an enterprise or not?
Yeah, and data in some way is the lifeblood of these new amazingly powerful Gen AI models. When I think about when Gen AI first came on the scene, these AI models like Gemini, data was all about, these models have been trained but with data. So aren't they so powerful because they now understand the internet of data, and you can ask any question and this model can synthesize really powerful answers. But in an enterprise context, I actually think um, data plays an even more significant role, because a generic model like Gemini trained on the internet of data can answer any public question, but it actually can't answer unique questions about your business because it's never been trained on your business. Your business's data is proprietary. It's typically locked away, access controlled in systems. And so for organizations and businesses who want to use GenAI to unlock new use cases, be it for customers in supply chain, they actually have to connect these really powerful models to their business data. And there's a number of different techniques that have evolved around how do you ground a model in your business data so it could accurately, in a trustworthy way, be able to answer questions about your business. And then beyond just grounding in your enterprise data has a really important role to play in also evaluating models and the accuracy of these models. And um, you've got to have your enterprise data supporting what we're calling this new space of evals coming out, that evaluation of these models. So without AI and data truly actually coming together, I don't believe a enterprise or business can get the value out of these AI models for those enterprise use cases.
I got you. I want to break this down into first principles thinking and very simple steps. So if we think about the human querying the data, we think about that translation layer, and then we think about the foundation. Let's talk about the foundation first. When you see these enterprise AI organizations, what does their data usually look like? Is it structured? Is it unstructured? Is it ready for AI? What does it look like to be AI ready in terms of your data foundation?
Great question. And that's maybe one of the top questions I hear from my customers is, I need to have an AI ready data foundation. What do I need to do to be AI ready with my data? When I think about an organization's data, and traditionally the data analyst or the data scientist, usually largely worked with structured data. It was like data that's nice and described in tables. If you imagine your sheets, you can look at this data. It's got columns, it's got rows, and it's very neat and tidy. Gen AI has blown the doors open on the data that you can work on because yes, it can work with that structured data, but more importantly, actually these AI models are super powerful on unstructured data, like documents, PDF files, images, video, data that traditionally actually analysts and data scientists didn't even store to begin with because that data, imagine analyzing images or video, it was just super hard. When we look at enterprises, actually 80 to 90% of the data that they have is unstructured. So now we suddenly have this amazingly powerful tool, Gen AI models like Gemini, that can actually unlock that 80 to 90% of what's been dark data. So we like to call it dark because nobody's ever touched it and thought about doing analysis. And now with these models, you can bring together your structured data with your unstructured data and get to much more useful, insightful um, analysis where you're not just looking at your manufacturing supply chain in terms of like the numerical readings that a sensor picked up. You're actually able to look at image and video analysis of the manufacturing pipeline and augment that with the sensor data to understand really what's happening on the manufacturing line. How can we optimize it? How can we get better? So, all data, be it structured, unstructured, now coming together for these organizations.
When I'm doing my research on this beforehand, this is a world that's entirely new to me. All right, I'm not a data scientist. I'm not technical myself, and something that comes up a lot is BigQuery knowledge engine, and it comes up all the time in my research. I don't fully understand it. So in the enterprise AI world, for someone who doesn't live in this world, what is BigQuery actually doing at its core? Why is it important?
Yeah. Um, a great question. And as if I link to the previous question about AI ready data foundations, at the core of it, BigQuery is our flagship data platform. And it's where all of that structured, unstructured data comes together, often for organizations where they're now what we call multimodal data, be it structured, unstructured images, videos, PDFs, are all coming together. And BigQuery as an engine is allowing organizations to run analysis with AI models on top of that data. So you've got this amazing engine. It's super powerful, highly scalable, running billions of queries per second, doing amazing work on this data foundation. But when we think about AI ready, it's not just putting together a really amazing engine on top of data and saying go. When we think about AI ready data, only 50% of the accuracy comes from having really good, clean data. Like, yes, you've got to have like all of that data organized and pulled together, but the other 50% comes from what we call is that knowledge and semantics you mentioned. So to make that like concrete, let's just reflect on how does a human analyst or data scientist work today? A human analyst data scientist will take a bunch of data. They might actually be looking at inspection reports to do with machines that are failing quality checks. And they will connect all of that data together. They will look at, okay, in the inspection report, how do I know there's actually a failure on this machine? And they're going to go speak to the team that does the inspection reports. They're going to work with them to say, hey, is it on page 10 of this PDF? There's a code. That code means it failed an inspection. Okay, got it. Okay, now I need to connect that with the machine data, which is nice structured data about what this machine is, how long it's been in production, when was its last maintenance check, and all of that stuff. But the human analyst is actually using a lot of context from what they understand about the business. They're speaking to colleagues, they're learning about how this data comes together, what it means, and then they're putting together an analysis and coming back with a nice report that says, 50% of our machines are failing because of this error that is happening, and this is what we should do to avoid these failures in the future. I describe what the human analyst does as a lot of invisible work. That invisible work is where they're speaking to colleagues. They're learning about the business. They're understanding how machines work. They're understanding how they should analyze this data based on how the inspection reports are done. That invisible work has never been captured in the data platform. So the data platform, like a BigQuery, traditionally would just store the good, clean data and have it all clean, and the human analyst would do all this invisible work and then work with BigQuery on that data. Now, with AI being here and also agents and autonomous agents, we're bringing more of that invisible work that the human analyst has done outside the system into the system. So inside of BigQuery, it's no longer just about having like nice clean data and a powerful engine. We're now doing supporting all of the nice clean multimodal structured, unstructured data, but we're bringing in semantics and a knowledge layer. That semantic and knowledge layer is actually capturing the business context, the business definitions. What does the business mean when they say new customer or when they say revenue? How does the business calculate these things? What do they classify as a failure? This is all definitions that we can store in that knowledge semantic layer. And that knowledge layer then works alongside the data. So when an AI or an agent comes and accesses that data, it also accesses the knowledge and semantics at the same time so that the powerful AI model can make sense of the data and do accurate analysis. So this is where, as at Google, is we're evolving our data cloud to what I call meet the agentic moment of this AI moment that we're in. We have to actually evolve our data platforms to not just be the traditional platforms that humans used. Now we have to think about how an AI operates and how do we capture some of the invisible work that humans were doing inside the platform.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the word of the moment, right, with agents. It's a thing of the moment. Claude yesterday with Anthropic, they released Claude Dispatch just yesterday. I've been using that. I was talking to my phone yesterday and getting Claude to work on my computer and go and do things. Perplexity released computer, they're releasing personal computer. Obviously, OpenClaw's a massive thing right now as well. It's it's the big part of the moment, and I'm really impressed by what exists already. I've been playing around with it personally, running it for my business. I'm about to buy a Mac Mini so that I could run stuff whilst I'm elsewhere, right? I'm really curious about your insights on the enterprise side of things. I'm really impressed as a consumer. Are you impressed in the enterprise side of things? How impressive are agents right now?
Super impressed, both from a consumer perspective, just personally using all of the advancements that are coming out so rapidly. And if you imagine those advancements are applying equally in the enterprise or business context. So when I think about autonomous agents, because basically we're not just getting to, we're moving beyond agents where you're sitting prompting the model and asking it questions and getting answers to this autonomous space where these agents can go take action. They can go run a search in a browser for you. They can, beyond that, they can actually go take action in for an enterprise in your supply chain. They can go place an order in your supply chain. They can reroute things in your supply chain. They can go drive marketing campaigns for you automatically based on a customer that's come in and is showing a propensity to buy. So this leap from an agent that was basically sitting there waiting for you to prompt it and ask it questions to now this autonomous workflows is creating a massive big opportunity for enterprises. Uh, we're also calling this now intent driven agentic AI. So you're not having to basically tell the agents to do single steps. You're actually giving them an outcome that you want them to achieve. I want to achieve a more optimized supply chain. I want to achieve more marketing touch points. And with the power of Gemini 3, these models can now reason really advanced multi-step reasoning to meet that outcome. And so that multi-step reasoning might be, oh, a model decides there's 3 steps and this is the outcome that to get to the outcome, or it might be 5 steps to get to an outcome. The model can determine those steps because of the powerful reasoning capability. So that is applying in the enterprise context where now we are seeing organizations move from not just building 1 or 10 or 100 agents. We had a customer on stage with us just a couple of weeks ago, And they said they quickly, rapidly went from 50 agents to 700 agents and now 2,000 agents. And the reason why you can see that going from that human scale to agent scale, thousands of agents, is because it's not a human sitting prompting these agents are working autonomously. And so organizations are looking at these agents across finance, HR, legal, supply chain, to do things that frankly weren't necessarily possible before without that autonomous capability.
Give me 30 seconds and I'll give you the secret to effective AI implementation. If you like the AI report, you already know what we're about. Cutting through the hype and helping leaders actually use AI. At Upscale, we're more than a newsletter or even this podcast. We work with global organizations like the Society for Human Resource Management and Fisher Phillips Law Partners to train entire departments, boosting efficiency and productivity by an average of 41% in just weeks. If you want your company ahead of the curve instead of chasing it, book a free strategy call at upscale.com. That's UPSCAILE.com. Schedule today and future-proof your tomorrow.
In my personal experience, when I was doing this yesterday, I spoke to my phone and said I needed some documents sent. I went and found some notes in Granola, and then found an email thread, I found a Slack conversation, then went into the files on my computer, drafted that email, and then pinged me when it was ready, right? But something that's always the case for any agentic systems that I use is I'm still evaluating at the end of the day. I don't trust them enough to be like hit send automatically all the time. I want to check it. So I want to talk about evaluations and what you think of it right now. Like, it seems as if we're still in a space where we're a human in the loop, or I think you've described it as a human on the loop. Like, what do evaluations look like right now? Are they good enough? What does a solution look like?
Great question. When I think about how traditional software has been built, I've seen many customers who are trying to evaluate agents in the way that they've built traditional software. And traditional software was um, you write the unit tests and you check that the software passes all of the tests. And if it passes the test, great, we can publish the software, we can put it out into the market. Agents are actually different, and this is why I think you picked up from some of the pieces I've spoken to before about human on the loop. Agents are built on these Gen AI models that are actually super powerful, constantly reasoning and learning over time, actually, based on the reasoning that they're doing and the inputs that they're seeing. So just writing a set of unit tests to be an evaluation gate and saying, if it passes this gate, the software is ready, doesn't really work in the agentic world. So we can't test agents like we've done software in the past. Agents need continuous evaluation. So once you put them out into the wild and an agent is out there continuing to reason and now learn from the environment that it's reasoning in, we need continuous evaluation to look at how is the agent's behavior changing over time? How are the actions that it's driving changing over time? Is this still what we expect? Is this still within the trust boundary that we need? And so this idea of continuous evaluation becomes really important, especially given also these agents are doing now multi-step reasoning and we're getting to what we just spoke about, this autonomous agents. If an agent is doing 5 steps and the first step has a glitch and there's a 1% error in the first step, that glitch or error actually compounds over the multiple steps of reasoning that the agent does to get to really bad answer by the end. So again, it's not even just evaluating the complete end of like what did the agent do. It's also understanding the reasoning steps agents are doing and evaluating the reasoning steps and understanding where errors might be creeping in as the agent gets to work. So this is why evals is not just a simple create a unit test and we're done. This is becoming a whole discipline. We're actually seeing eval roles and teams evolve as customers get to those thousands of agents where now they're looking at how how do I make sure I'm continuously monitoring, having the observability to monitor, understand the operations of these agents and continuously tweak them. And if an agent is failing, a lot of the time it comes back to that context I spoke about before. Maybe it doesn't have the right business context and semantics. How do I add that into the system to make sure the agent is understanding the operation and performing as I expect?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I wanna make this more real and more tangible for a lot of people. Um, with us, part of our business is that we do enterprise training and AI implementation for organizations. That's what we do. And we really find that like technology is the problem from taking somewhere like a project from pilot to production. Like a lot of the time it's a cultural thing. And I'm really curious from your perspective, like when you walk into like a large organization, what signals are you looking for to see that they're AI ready beyond just the technical part?
Yes, that's that's a great question around what signals are there. Let me first just start by reflecting on Google. So, as I think about Google and even our internal adoption of GenAI, our CEO on recent earnings report mentioned that 50% of our code is now written by AI. We're seeing a 10% efficiency gain in our engineering orgs because of the use of AI. So that's internal to Google. Then I look external to Google. We have customers like Honeywell saying by using our data agents, they're seeing 30% efficiency of their teams. So we're already seeing organizations adopting agents, talking about the productivity, the efficiency, the fact that they're able to automate code generation. Um, these tasks are being done. When it comes to the signal that I look for or I see, many of the organizations are already unlocking those use cases. It's not about having a master plan um, high up of, hey, our organization is going to adopt AI and here's the 4 steps to follow. Because this is such a new technology and it's evolving so fast, a lot of the innovation is actually coming grounds up. Where I've spoken actually to multiple customers this week, and often the same question comes up of where do we even get started? Where we're seeing success is where customers are choosing pilots and they are running those ground up. They're figuring out there's an opportunity in my business here. And if I can get moving with this opportunity, we can prove out how to apply this technology in our real world context to this use case. Uh, if I just take a couple of customer examples, uh, Moglix, who are an Indian digital supply chain company, they saw 4x improvement in their sourcing team's efficiency. And seeing that sourcing team efficiency, it was because they get down to very specific, hey, I want to look at my supply chain platform. I want to look at how we are doing sourcing. Let's apply GenAI in this context. And then they can suddenly rapidly drive new agents, new techniques to look at that specific problem. But it's by really honing in on a specific area of the business, understanding what's maybe very manual today, what's very cumbersome today, or often what is just impossible because it's so human driven. How can we apply AI agentic thinking into that use case to do it differently? Uh, when I think we had also a legal customer working with their legal team, and I pick on that use case because actually we've seen use cases in, for example, HR and legal teams. These are use cases that traditionally have been very human manual driven because, if you're doing document reviews, it was a human sitting reading all of these documents or contracts. Today, those same customers are seeing by applying agents, they're able to process over those multimodal unstructured documents. So the customer in this case I was thinking of was Inspira. They're in the legal tech space and they're now using BigQuery to automate legal document analysis. And they're cutting down their manual workflows by 80% because it's no longer relying on a human to line by line read through these legal briefs in copious amounts of detail. They can use AI to really cut through the noise, analyze those legal documents, pinpoint information, and then yes, the human still comes into the loop, but much more efficiently, 80% more efficiently. So for me, the recommendation always to customers is go find those really painful journeys in your enterprise today. Find those moments in your enterprise where you're doing things that is super manual. It might be super laborious, or you're not doing something because actually the barrier to being able to analyze 1,000 documents is just too high today. This is where Gen AI is a new kind of tool that we've never had in our toolbox before that we can now apply.
It's funny hearing you describe the problem. There's such parallels between individuals and enterprises. When we speak to individuals or I speak to family friends that are like, how do I use AI? It's the same thing. It's the same advice that I give to them. They're like, where do I start? And I'm like, we'll start with one problem and go from there. And it's the same for enterprises, seemingly. Um, I think something I want to tap into is I was reading this MIT study beforehand that was saying that like 95% of AI pilots produce zero measurable ROI. But one
Mm.
clear distinction they made is that there's a very big difference between companies that try to approach these projects by themselves and companies that actually take on a partner such as Google for these projects. Why do you think there's such a difference in the results based on taking on a partner or not? Is it just a case of like not having the blinders on? What makes that difference?
Yeah, that's an interesting study and stat of success. So when I think about Gen AI, I think also when I talk to my customers, one of the challenges that they call out continuously is this space is evolving so fast. So I mean, actually, the biggest complaint I've heard from my customers over the last probably year, if longer, is, "Hey Google, you're innovating too fast. We can't keep up." I think that feeling is uh, very common across lots of customers, lots of individuals, teams that I speak to, because even internally within Google, if I look at the pace at which the market is evolving every day, there's new papers, there's new research, there's new findings, there's new products being launched. It's really hard for organizations to keep up with that and understand what's the latest. Um, in fact, like even within Google, within our teams, we've instituted this idea that even if you tried something 3 months ago and it didn't work with AI, you should try again now. Because the models, every 2 weeks, there's incremental updates and they're taking leaps and bounds forward. So where the partnership piece I think can is probably working to customers' benefit with the ROI is for an individual customer who's not necessarily living and breathing building AI models every day, if they partner with Google, our DeepMind research teams are knee deep in understanding exactly how the models are working, how they are innovating every day, what the enhancements are, what that might be unlocking. We're trying all of these use cases across the globe with different customers. We're also deeply embedded in the research space, for example, with life sciences. We're working in we've been looking at gaming and life sciences and different domains to see how do these models unlock transformational shifts in cancer research in areas that maybe traditional tools just couldn't touch. The benefit of Google is we're able to do that because we have the deep research teams, because we are in the business of building these models, because we have the global reach and we're able to see and apply these models in these different contexts. For an individual organization, I can imagine if I'm in the shoes of a CEO or a leader in one of my customers, it's really hard for them to stay up to speed. So having that trusted partner like Google, it means you've got a partner who's helping to synthesize all of the advancements that are happening, never mind in 6 months, but in the last 2 weeks, and bringing that to you in a context relevant way. So you're not having to read the 100 papers to synthesize what's most important and now relevant. You've got Google or you've got a partner who understands the space and is doing that for you. So I can see, for customers, was it last year we published this blog of the 1,000 customer use cases, and people were just blown away because at that point people were still saying, "Is there ROI? Is there value?" And then Google came out with this 1,000 customer store use cases, and it's because we've got that ability to look across the landscape that we can actually pull together where is that nuggets of success and how can organizations build on that. And a lot of the time, organizations are building on examples from other industries. It doesn't have to be from their industry because this area is so new. So they're looking for those ideas and that inspiration from across industries, across domains.
Hmm. I mean, it really resonates, like, that customer pain point of saying, "I literally can't keep up with how fast you're innovating." My entire job, my entire existence, our entire company relies on the fact that we provide the news with a newsletter, with a podcast, and we struggle to keep up. This is how we keep everyone paid, and we struggle to keep up. Like, it is just advancing at a ridiculous rate, and it's really reaching a point right now, I think, over the past 2.5 years of us doing this, like, AI's come a long way. I think especially within the past 3 months, everything's been advancing so quickly to the point where I've been WhatsApp messaging family members and friends and my brother, and like, you have to get on this. You can't afford to not be in this space right now, is how fast everything's moving. I want to finish off on a little bit of a segment about governance. You've spoke about governance before, and I think when people hear that word, they think red tape, they think bureaucracy, they think it's going to slow down. I know that you think about it differently as more of like an accelerator. Talk to me about like how governance makes you move faster, not slower.
Yeah, and I think the challenge also partly, Liam, is the word governance, because in the traditional world, when anybody said governance, that was the department of no. Like, it was, oh, we gotta go figure out the governance. That basically means we can't do it. We're gonna lock the system down, and nobody's gonna have access, or it's gonna be limited access, and so the word governance from the legacy way of how we've treated governance has been more of like the trust and compliance team and locking things down. Governance in the AI era means something completely different. These models are super powerful and they're off to the races. It's not about applying brakes on the car so that you halt the car and stop it from moving ahead. It's applying brakes so that you can confidently drive 150 miles per hour into a bend and know that you're still going to be in control. So, governance, when it comes to AI, is actually about giving these models the additional context, the semantics, the real time catalog. We call it the real-time catalog also for AI, where as AI operates, it's got that safety net. And that's a mindset shift in how people have thought about governance from historics to today. So when organizations now are looking at this governance challenge around models, a lot of it comes back down to building the context layer, the semantic layer, so that these models can operate with trust, with accuracy, and have the guardrails so they don't hallucinate. So the model doesn't make things up in this enterprise context. Like, these models are super powerful. They're generating amazing imagery, amazing videos. But in an enterprise context, if I'm asking about revenue and sales and failure rates, I expect a very precise answer. So governance really in that AI space is taking on the role of making sure in an enterprise context, the model is only inferencing over the data it should be, that if there's sensitive PII information, that is not being accidentally leaked through the models. Secondly, the model is grounding itself in business data, so it's answering more accurately, more precisely. And thirdly, that the model has access to personalization information and context information so it can give you, as Liam, the answers you're looking for, which might be different to Yasmeen, who's in a different department with a different context. So if I think about the biggest unlock in the next 6 months, the models are really powerful. And yes, they will continue to grow and be more powerful, I'm sure. But actually, the bigger unlock is going to be for organizations is that semantic and context piece, because regardless of whether you're a startup or you're a large enterprise, everybody has access to these powerful models. So what makes you differentiated in your use of the models is actually the business context, that governance that you bring to the model to help it operate at speed in thousands of autonomous agents, but with trust and accuracy.
Well, let me ask you this. If that's the biggest unlock moving forward, who do you think's best poised to succeed with that? Is it a particular industry? Are you looking at like the founder? Is it the way a company's set up? Like, who's actually going to adopt this? Like, what would your prediction be?
So when I think about historically, especially in the large data space technologies, often, the largest companies were able to move faster because they had deep pockets to go invest in technology and go buy. They Historically, it was also even the infrastructure investments to go do this stuff in the cloud. And now with AI, if I think about the Google stack, AI is everywhere across the Google stack and everybody has access. So in some ways there's a level playing field whether you're a small startup of 3 people or you're the largest enterprise in the world. Everybody's got access to this powerful technology. You don't need to have like massive deep pockets to make upfront investments to embrace this new technology. So with that kind of level playing field, I really do think it comes down to the mindset within the company and the culture within the company to drive innovation, to drive adoption. So you'll see equal sized companies where one is able to move 10 times faster and try 10 times more things versus another company of the same size, same scale. And really, what we're seeing it come down to is a company's internal culture of how they're setting up their culture to try things out, to innovate, to um, look at doing things in a different way. And this comes down to a lot of change management too, because we're talking about completely changing the way workflows and processes have worked traditionally within companies. And so how resilient your culture is, I think, plays a lot into it. Like, how much is your culture going to fight that change to the processes and workflows versus your culture is built on a growth mindset, whereas, hey, let's adopt this because we can actually do better for our customers. We can move faster. So I actually don't think it's about the size of company or how deep your pockets are. I think it's the leadership, the tone that they set, the culture of the company, that their willingness to, with the growth mindset, to adopt new technology that is making the big difference.
We started this conversation by talking about skills and qualities of you, and I want to look things back there to finish the conversation. With this mindset of growth and openness to this change being a crucial part of succeeding in the next 3 to 6 months and just the coming years, right? Like that cultural aspect is so important. The majority of the time that comes down to an individual, the founding individual, the CEO, they usually set the tone. So when it comes down to that individual, what skills or qualities do you think is really important to have? Like what kind of people are going to succeed, do you think, moving forward?
Yeah. And if I just reflect on the industry, I think we've seen a number of companies also do CEO shifts or changes. We have seen leadership changes in the industry. Um, I've seen a lot of founders come back to lead the helm of the company, and often those leaders being product leaders, not necessarily sales leaders or um, uh, the kind of CRO, CFO type of leaders. We've seen a resurgence of kind of product leaders coming back, founders who are driving their companies, because I think the mindset that they bring of innovation and thinking differently. How do I build a product that disrupts the market? How do I find an opportunity within the market? They've got that mindset to actually look at the market and look at, we talk a lot about business needs and customer CUJs. Like, what's the actual customer need that we're solving for? And now that we've got a different, amazing technology, this really powerful Gemini model, maybe there's a different way to solve for that customer problem than we've thought about for the last decade. And that requires a kind of founder type mentality where you're not looking at optimizing the market, you're not looking at optimizing your business or your existing products and bolting AI onto your products. You're actually fundamentally rethinking your products potentially and saying there's maybe a completely different way to solve the problem that we never imagined before because we didn't have the tools. So I do feel like there's a certain that founder mentality, that for product companies coming back to that product leadership, um, urgence because of those skills that those individuals bring to the table.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it speaks to what you said at the start of the conversation. The thread between everything for you was curiosity, right? It's why you approach things. And I think curiosity and creativity are more important than ever. It's why I do this. It's why I love the podcast the most. It's at the point where AI can build anything for you. Like it is your imagination. It's the limiting factor. And so I agree in what I've seen as well. And from the podcast that I've done with other C-suite execs, it's a similar sentiment that I hear from them. I want to finish off with one last question that I ask all of my guests. And take this however you want. I would encourage you to take 5 to 10 seconds before answering, and I refuse to give any further context. Okay?
Okay.
Why do you do what you do?
That is deep question, Liam. Why do I do what I do? Um, that's a great question. Why do I do what I do? Uh, beyond the what I beyond just, we spoke a little bit about my career journey, etc. I find it fascinating and interesting to be in these different domains and unlocking use cases with customers. I think at the core of it, to me, if I'm in the moment today with I believe it represents a fundamental step change in human history. And we'll look back at this moment and say, this technology really changed the game across many different industries and how humans think about work, how we put meaning to even life and work and different things. I equate the moment that we're in right now to something like a shift like the internet. Think about life before you can think about life before the internet, and then you can think about life after the internet. And there's a radical difference in how the internet as a technology just changed every aspect of human life, of how we work, how we think, how we communicate, how we socialize as communities. I think AI has that potential. And I think we are, to me, it's a privilege to be at this point in time in my career in Google, one of the companies that is actually at the bleeding edge of innovating this technology, to be actually part of that shift and defining what that future looks like for humans. And I know that feels quite grandiose, but I don't think you get many opportunities in your life to be part of such a pivotal shift. And I really believe that now is one of those moments. And so for me, waking up every day is, yes, things are crazy. Yes, it's hectic. Yes, it's hard to keep up. But for me, it's in however small part role I can play in defining what that future looks like. And I really do believe we'll look back and we'll say there was life before Gen AI and then life after Gen AI, and it will be stark in just the impact that it has for humans.
It's an amazing answer. Yasmin, I want to firstly thank you for your time, taking an hour out of your day. I'm glad that we made this happen. And two, if people want to learn more about you or what you do or who you are, how do they go about getting in contact?
Of course. So I am at Google Cloud. We're always happy to hear from customers and anybody looking to explore the technologies. More than happy to for you guys to reach out. But also personally, if people would love to reach out, I'm on LinkedIn, on the socials. So please drop me a note. Always happy to engage and talk about what's happening in the space.
Awesome. Yasmin, thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thank you, Liam.